So most of you are all familiar. I wanted to talk about what is the key to relieving ourselves from suffering. But last week, Govinda Madhava Prabhu spoke about grace. I'm going to say a prayer of asking blessings of my teachers, in the line of teachers. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guru Namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master is opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. After my humble obeisance unto him. Namaste Jivanandaya Dasa Vanachani Prabhupada Vallabhaya Snyasila Vinodine Ajnanadvantakamanam Pashtita Patitatmanam Jnana Gurute Chitarine Chakshushinamaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prachadade Nirvisheshisham Yavadi Pashtitade Shatade Ajanilambita Puja Kanaka Vadata Sankirtanaya Kapitara Kamala Taksha Vishwambara Dvishavara Yugadama Pala Vande Jagat Priyakara Karuna Avataro He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Visubhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Adi Priye Namaste Giriyajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Shri Krishna Shaya Parmanadayane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'd like to impart tonight that the Krishna consciousness movement and all of the facilities and practices within and thereof it are mystical. This is a mystical movement, not a mundane movement, not a hippie movement or a movement of free spirituality. It's a mystical movement given at the beginning of time, actually. Going back from the time of Lord Brahma, void. He was placed in the void of the universe. And he looked around, and in that moment of awakening, he could not figure out who he was or what he was supposed to do. Enlightened in Krishna consciousness. And Krishna spoke to him, Aham evasya evagre. I am the source of everything. I'm the cause of all things, beyond the cause and effect. I am in the beginning, I was there. In the end, I am there. And in the middle, this was Brahma's enlightenment. Nanyad yat sat asat param. Nanyad yat asat param. I am beyond the sat and the asat. I am beyond both that is eternal and that which is temporary. I'm beyond both of that. So this is an ancient movement, and it's mystical. And we're all looking for magic in life. We're all looking for something to happen, something mystical, something magical. People want this experience, something beyond the mundane day-to-day. Many people like to fall in love. It's a very wonderful feeling to fall in love, because falling in love takes away our sense of control. It seems very divine when one falls in love. That feeling is. And so we're all seeking that. We all want to fall in love. We all want to be out of love. They're falling more and more into depression, into pain. This mystical movement it's not that you can become religious and present in our lives and that will solve our problems. Powerful base. So I wanted to kind of start out by saying, what is it that makes us feel separated? What is it that makes us feel isolated? What is it that makes us feel unholy? And holy means that we're wholesome. And holiness means that we're whole, we're present, we're completely full in ourselves. We're set aside, we're sanctified, purified from the contamination of the of the world. The definition of holy is that which is separate for the service of God, the service of the Supreme, of Krishna. So I wanted to bring up a word that many people hate, including myself. It gives a lot of people bad feelings. And that word is sin. You don't like that word, especially in modern days, because that word has been used to degrade a lot of people, to make people, and it's been used to essentially turn people away from spirituality. But there is such thing as sin. But what the church and the modern religions have defined it as definition of sin. And that's really what we're speaking about tonight. What is the mystical definition of sin? And sin is that which doesn't allow you to see yourself the way God sees you. Krishna sees you as a pure spirit soul. Krishna says that the soul is amazing and awe-inspiring, and that the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, that the soul is Satchitananda. The soul is eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. And he says, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashtashtash indriyani prakriti stani karshati. The living entities in this material world are my eternally fragmented parts and parcels, but they're struggling very hard with the six senses and the mind. So that's our position. This is our existential position, that you are a beautiful part of God. You're more beautiful than you could possibly imagine if we actually see ourselves the way Krishna sees us. Sorry, that's India. India does. When you give an Indian your phone number, they'll text you a lot of pictures of Krishna. But yeah, and they always text you this time because they're just waking up and they got text everybody on their list. But so this is what we're saying, is that actually sin is that which doesn't allow you to see yourself in this beautiful light. And so that causes insecurity. That causes self-hatred. And then that causes actions of insecurity and actions of self-hatred. And therefore we self-sabotage and we isolate. We take shelter of that which is temporary. We take shelter of drugs, take shelter of sex. We take shelter of our phones. We take shelter of mundane entertainment. We take shelter of weak and loose friendships that are not very meaningful, because we're not able to see the beauty within, because we've been covered over. That's what sin really is. It's not that it's just some autocratic God that you've done against what I have sanctioned, and therefore you should suffer. This is not what actually God is like. But when we act not in accordance with our divine nature, when we act with our animalistic nature, our lower nature, then we're not allowed to see ourselves the way that he sees us, because you are part and parcel of Krishna. And Krishna doesn't make anything ugly. God doesn't make mistakes. The source of everything is perfect. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnasya Udachyate. The Supreme Personality is perfect and complete. Purnat Purnam Adaya Purnameva Vashishyate. The personality of God is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him are in themselves perfectly complete. So you are completely perfect. Although so many perfect units emanate from that perfect whole, he remains the perfect balance. Meaning that if I take a drop of water out of a pitcher of water, then the water will slowly go down. But in Krishna's case, you can take unlimited drops of water and he remains full, although all the drops of water came out of him. So you are perfect. And it's explained that all sense of incompleteness, all sense of being incomplete or being unholy, of feeling unworthy, of feeling afraid, of feeling insecure, that is as a result of incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. So when one has complete knowledge of the complete whole, then one can overcome this sense of insecurity, self-sabotage, all the things that we don't want in our life, and fear. And bad karma. right? So also whenever you do something sinful, so to speak, not only are you not able to see yourself as divine, but you're incurring karma from hurting another or going against the laws of nature. And so then karma has to come upon you. And then there's a cycle. There's a cycle of karma. This is something people don't understand. There's a cycle of reactions. And that all starts with avidya. Avidya means ignorance. So the reason we are in this world and the reason we are suffering, the reason we have any suffering in our lives, and we feel incomplete, we feel unhappy, we feel unsatisfied, is because of avidya. Avidya means that which is not knowledge, or vidya means knowledge, avidya means lack of knowledge or ignorance. So you're ignorant of who you really are. We are ignorant of who we are. We've forgotten who we are. You're a part and parcel of Krishna. You are beautiful, you are loving, you are sweet, you have unlimited capacity to love. You have so much beauty within you that you can actually give pleasure to the source of beauty, to Krishna. You exist for that reason, to have an eternal love affair with the eternal and supreme lover. This is your existence. It's good news, folks. That's who you are. You are meant to have an eternal love affair with the source of love. And that includes all of his parts and parcels. But due to avidya, we don't understand how to do that right. We don't understand. So that propensity to love becomes translated into the mind and through the modes of material nature to so many things, to all kinds of lower and higher types of enjoyment. So it starts with avidya. And from avidya comes bijam, or the seed of bad karma, sinful desire, right? Because of avidya, I'm thinking I'm this body, I'm thinking I'm this mind, I'm thinking that I'm of this world, and therefore I have to act accordingly. And so there's so many things that we want to do that could harm others, to put others in harm's way, or that are not in accordance with our divine nature. So we do something we didn't want to do. How many of you have done something that you regret? So why do we do that? Because of ignorance. And so this bija, this seed of ignorance, is planted in the heart from ignorance. And from that comes action, or sinful activity, an action. Papa karma in Sanskrit, papa karma. Or it could be called vikarma, a vikarmic action, an action that's against your divine nature. And so from that comes a reaction, right? You've done something, it's gone against the laws of nature, it's gone against your divine self, and you've put another in harm's way, some way or another, either in the far future or in the immediate present. And so therefore there's a reaction. Those reactions are of two types. One is called parabdha, and one is called aparabdha. Parabdha means the actual manifest reaction of your papa karma, of your bad activity. You have a reaction. And so you're suffering. You are getting some suffering back. You've caused suffering, and therefore we have to suffer. And then what's called aparabdha karma is that which is put within the stars. Quite literally, it's taken into the stars and will be beamed down upon you in proper time. That's what we call astrology. That's why astrology works, is because these stars are holding these activities, and then the reactions are ready for their proper time and place. And so then from that, one of those reactions from that bad karma activity is called kutam, which means one of the reactions is that now I have an increased desire to go into ignorance. So as you go into ignorance, your desire to be in ignorance increases. And now we can experience that, right? If someone tries a very addictive drug, once, maybe okay, twice, 3 times, they're hooked most of the time, right? And so in that way, you become more and more okay with that which is degrading, right? Sometimes we feel very pure as children, children very pure, and then we do something, we know it's wrong. We begin to be okay with the being wrong. And then it becomes the way of life. And so then what happens is your conscience becomes covered over, and divinity is taken away from you. And so in that place, all suffering comes upon us. But that's not because of a punishment. That's because of justice for everybody. And that's actually for our purification, so that we can resurrect our divinity. So we can't see ourselves for who we are. And so what's the solution? Now, we're not propounding one religion over another religion. That's not what we do here at the Krishna Conscious Movement. We're speaking of the principles behind religion. Why does religion work and not work? Whether you're a Christian, you're a Hindu, you're a Jew, this is the science of spirituality. It's not the religion itself, it's a science. And so then there's people try acts of atonement, right? We've heard of atonement. I'm going to go to confession. I'm going to do this or that, I'm going to, go to the fire dance or whatever, we do some purificatory activity, jump in the holy river, go out in nature and pray and, take the sacred food or sacred medicine, whatever. There's so many things we do to like so-called burn our karma. That's great because you can change your reactions. You can change your life. You can change the reactions that are happening to you. But the problem is not outrooted because you haven't destroyed the ignorance which was causing this in the first place. So only bhakti yoga is capable of uprooting the ignorance which is affecting us, this avidya, the jaundice of avidya, as Rupa Goswami says, jaundice of avidya, the disease of avidya. So how do we do that? Bhakti yoga is the solution to uproot this ignorance within our heart. Because bhakti yoga is what allows us to perceive ourselves for who we really are. And we understand who we really are. Based on the Bhagavad Gita, based on our experience, we can understand. The first instruction of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Natvevaham jatu nasam natam nimi janadipaha nachaiva nabhavishama sarve vyamataparam. Never was there a time when you didn't exist. Never was there a time when I didn't exist. And never was there a time when any of these people didn't exist. You've always been. You're an eternal being. Good news, folks. You're an eternal being. Then he says, Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovaram jatata dehantara praptir diras tatra namuyati. That as a living entity, the embodied living entity continually passes from boyhood to youth to old age. The soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. A sober person is not bewildered by such change. So Krishna is saying that you're not this body. You're the soul within the body. You are a spiritual being. You are a spiritual being. This is the beginning of real knowledge. This is the beginning of overcoming avidya. Najayate muyate va karachin nayam bhutva bhavita vanabhuyaha ajo nidya shashvato yam parano nanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul, there's neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, everlasting, eternal, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. This is you, folks. You're the soul. You are the spiritual soul within, and you are beautiful. The body is destined to death. This is the nature of the body. The body has so many foul elements. There's so many things in the body that we'd rather not do or not see or not be affected by, such as primarily birth, death, old age, and disease. We don't want to have to get old. We don't want to have to die. We don't want to have to face disease. This is against our propensity because really the living entity, the spiritual soul, the spiritual part and parcel of God, what does he want to do? He wants to enjoy. Yes, this is what we want to do. We want to enjoy. We want to be happy. And you're meant to be happy. But because of this avidya, we've taken up a body and we begin to think I am this body. But you're not the body, you're the soul within the body. And so what does that mean? You have to first accept, if I am a soul, what is a soul? What is a soul? If I am a spiritual being, most people can accept that. Most people who come to this class have generally accepted themselves as spiritual. Why else would they come to the spiritual class? So what does that mean, though? This is what we're here to tell you. What does it mean to be spiritual? It's not just dressing cool. It's not. It's not just putting cool paint on your face or dressing in orange robes or having flowy clothes and lots of cool chains and gold rings and nice crystals. Wait, you go to Cove? No, unfortunately. It's also not having none of those things. I'm going to just dress in a loincloth in a cave. That's also not spiritual. What does it actually mean to be spiritual? It's not just like everybody sees me as a good person. That's also not spiritual. What does it mean to be spiritual? Krishna says, Mamaivam sho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashtashtash indriyani prakritistani karshati. The living entities in this material world, that's you, they are all suffering. The mind and senses. The mind gives us so much trouble. The senses give us so much trouble. They want things. I want this. I want her. I want him. I want this. I want that. I want pizza, whatever. And then from that, we're thinking, I'm this mind or I'm this senses. But Krishna says, no, Mamaivam sho jiva loke. You are my eternally fragmented part and parcel. So you are part of Krishna, yet you're not Krishna. This is the mystery. This is the mystery of love. It's called the Chincha Veda Veda Tattva. You're part of God, yet you're not God. But you're part of. You have the same quality, but not the same quantity. He has unlimited power. You have limited power. You have power, but limited power. Krishna has unlimited power. And but on the qualitative level, you're also full of love. You're also full of bliss. You're also full of all these qualities. And Krishna can empower you to do that as much as he likes, as much as you would like to do. You can be empowered to love on the highest level, which is all that really matters. But a spirit soul, if you accept that I am a soul, what does it mean to be a soul? What does it mean? It means to love. That's what a soul does. What a body does, a body gets born, it dies, it has children, it has so many different businesses to do, it has so many different people to argue with and to fight with, and different trips it goes through in its own mind. It has to go vote for the right person. This is what a body, this is the activities of a body. But when you accept, I'm not this body, I'm this soul. And so what is it I am really supposed to do? What is my real business? What is my actual dharma? What is my actual dharma? My dharma is to love. But who to love? Because I'm loving as a body. I love her body. I love his body. I love this. I love that. What does it really mean? No, it means to love, first and foremost, to love the source of love, to love Krishna. Krishna is the most beautiful. He's the most sweet. When you love Krishna, then all of the loving propensities are fulfilled. Just like watering the root of a tree. You water the root, not the twigs and the leaves. You water the root. So therefore, Krishna is the source of love. Aham evasya, aham sarvasya prabhavo matasara pravartate. I am the source of everything. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly understand this engage in my loving devotional service. So then we enter the love affair with Krishna. Then we become very happy. So this devotional service, when you chant Hare Krishna, and when you take Krishna Prasadam, and you do the activities which are taught in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the ancient activities of Bhakti Yoga as propounded in the 5,000-year-old Srimad Bhagavatam, and more ancient than that actually, but it was just written down 5,000 years ago. When these activities are engaged in, the ignorance of the mind, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, is cleared. And at that time, one can begin to see themselves as who they really are. I'm part and parcel of God. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. And I have an eternal relationship of love with Krishna. And Krishna is a person, and I'm also a person. And we have activities, we have friendships, we have jokes, we have fun together. And this is the way of life for a devotee, that they're actually having an experience of God. Not, I believe in this, and if you don't believe in this, you'll go to hell. This is not religion. This is not spirituality. Spirituality is experiential. Pratyaksa bhagimam dharmam susukam kartamavyayam. Krishna explains that this is pratyak. It means you understand perfectly well. You can't take it away from anybody who has it, because I'm having an experience of Krishna. Therefore it's pratyaksa agimam dharmam. It's the supreme religion, the supreme dharma, because it gives you direct perception of the self by realization. And therefore it's susukam. You become very happy. Very, very happy. Susum kartamavyam. And that happiness never ends, kartamavyam. It never ends, because I've accepted myself and I live on the eternal platform. So, therefore, devotional service is the real way to root out this papa karma, this sinful propensity. So then we can see ourselves as Krishna sees us. And then we can act in that way. And that means you become empowered and you become able to love at a level you never knew. It means you overcome envy, you overcome anger, you overcome greed, you overcome lust. And you transform all those things into love for all other living entities, and it's most importantly Krishna. You have this relationship. And in that state, you become a servant, and you see all living beings equally. And then real love develops in the heart. So what is real knowledge? What does God have to do with it? And I wanted to think, where does it all apply into what we're talking about, right here, right now? So why does God come into this world? This is one of the things people don't know. This is part of that avidya. First off, we don't belong in this world because you want to enjoy eternally. You want eternal happiness. When you fall in love, how many here have ever fallen in love? When you fall in love, you don't want it to end. Who wants it to end? No one wants it to end. But it does end. It always ends. It always ends in this world. Even if it goes on till death, it still ends at death. Because then you have to go to a new body. So the relationship, maybe the love is there if there was real love, but very rarely is that the case. The relationship ends. And so the living entity is full of pain. Right? Prabhupada says, the Paranjana, he within the body, becomes very sad at this. So part of this ignorance is we're not from this world. We're from the spiritual world. We live in a spiritual existence, but we've taken on a temporary existence. So most people don't know that the Supreme Godhead appears in this world time after time. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bharata abhutanam adharmasya adatmajam shadharmiham paritonaya sadhunam vinashaya triduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna says, whenever and wherever there's a decline in dharma, glanir bhavati dharma, whenever there's a decline in dharma, religious principles, spirituality, whenever that is declined, I descend myself into this world. Why? Tell me why, someone who knows why.
The miscreants to destroy the establish religious principles.
So to paritranaya saranam, to demolish the demoniac, to diminish their power over those who are good, to protect those who are saintly, and to reestablish real dharma. So this is at this time, Krishna says it's explained that it doesn't just mean the personality of God himself, it means his representatives, Jesus Christ, the Buddha, so many different representatives, they come with the same purpose, to reestablish the eternal dharma, to diminish the power of those who are dark or in deep ignorance, and to uplift those who are seeking spirituality. But that's not the real reason. What's the real reason? Because if God wanted to destroy the ignorant, he doesn't have to appear to do that. He can just do it. He can do it with a lightning bolt, earthquake, solar flare. And if he wants to protect you, he doesn't have to appear to protect you. And if he wants to reestablish religion, he has people who can do that. He doesn't have to come himself. He can send someone to do that. He can make you can do that. You can do that. You just have to be empowered to do it. All Krishna has to do is say, you're empowered. You have unlimited empowerment to do. So what is the real reason that Krishna appears?
We're ignorant, so we don't even know anything about him, whether that's even a possibility. But if he comes here to give us something to talk about and to have pastimes or relove and do some of those things, and also whenever he does that, he engages people to help him do those things.
Yes.
So when you lose people, talk about it, and then
the real reason the Lord comes is to give you pleasure. That's it, out of love. He actually just appears to have loving relationships with the living entities in this world. And those loving relationships are so profound that they inspire people for generations and generations and generations to reawaken that love. That's the reason. So this is why you are here. Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo viti tattvatah tvaktva deham punar janma naiti mameti sorjuna. That one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and my activities does not, upon leaving his body, O son of Kunti, take birth again in this material world. Now, why is that? If you understand why God comes into this world, why divine beings, not just God, but all the representatives of God, why do they appear in this world? If If you understand why they come. Many people want to be followers of Christ. They want to be followers of Krishna, followers of Buddha, but they don't understand the why. And so everything gets muddied up, and then we have judgments. We have all kinds of wars and all kinds of craziness happening. But if you really understand the why, then Janma Karma Evam Yoveti Tatvata Twaktwa. If you understand in truth, Twaktwa Deham Punar Janma, why I am born. Naiti Mameti Sorjana. Punar Janma Naiti. You don't take birth again. You become liberated from this knowledge. This knowledge here is liberating. The Lord comes into this world to demonstrate his love for you, sometimes in extreme ways. In extreme ways, in a way that'll touch your heart. It doesn't mean everybody's the same. You know, we see the Son of God, Jesus Christ. He came into the world. He died. And that was very moving to people, right? People are moved by that. And we're not anything wrong with that. That's a way that moves people. But if you take it the wrong way, then it becomes judgment. It becomes all kinds of different problems. But that was an expression of love, like show you love in this way, in this way. Krishna, how did he show love? In so many ways, because he's Rasaraj. And so Krishna was the greatest lover, he was the greatest friend, he was the greatest child, he was the greatest parent, he was the greatest king. This is Krishna because he's the supreme Bhagavan. We understand that. So if you understand that, actually Krishna comes into this world to demonstrate his love for all of us. And we stop living like we're, white male Americans or, female Indians, whatever. We stop living like that. And we start living like, actually, I'm part and parcel of Krishna. And my business is to have a loving relationship with Krishna. Then at that time, we become liberated. This is the process. You become liberated. Just as there's one story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about how Lord Chaitanya, the personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, was wandering in West Bengal. And he came across one Brahmana who was profusely reading the Bhagavad Gita. He had the Bhagavad Gita in his hand. But Lord Chaitanya noticed that it was backwards. He was reading upside down. And all the other Brahmanas and priestly people at that place were making fun of this Brahmana. They were saying, oh, this man, he's reading the Bhagavad Gita upside down. They were very, very, very mean to him. And Lord Chaitanya was, of course, he's Krishna, he's full of compassion and love. And he came to this Brahmana, he says, why are you reading Bhagavad Gita upside down? He says, actually, I can't read. But my guru told me I should try to understand Bhagavad Gita. But Lord Chaitanya, but I see you are crying. You're crying tears of ecstasy. Why is it you're crying tears of ecstasy? He says, although I can't read, simply from the cover of Bhagavad Gita, I can see that Krishna has become the chariot driver of his devotee, who is known as Arjun Sarathi. Krishna has become the chariot driver of his devotee. And this is moving my heart, that God himself has become the servant of his own devotee. And therefore I'm crying tears. And Lord Chaitanya said, none of you understand Bhagavad Gita, but he has understood the real Bhagavad Gita. Because what is the real meaning? The real meaning is that God is not some autocrat in the sky who wants to impose rules upon you and enjoy you like some type of weird kid with a sandbox and playing with ants. This is not the case. Actually, Krishna just wants to see you as his equal. Not in power, but in love. In power, of course, he's more powerful. There's no way we can avoid that. He can appear that he's more powerful. He can make it seem like you're more powerful. He can empower you to be more powerful than him. But actually, he just wants to love you. So therefore, mystical Krishna consciousness, this mystical movement is the means by which we overcome this awe and reverence. And we become friends with the personality of Godhead. He becomes our partner. He becomes our lover. And he becomes our companion. And this sense of impersonality or the sense of fear, this should vanish. And in that place, because Krishna comes in this world to give pleasure and to live in this way, to show how he does these things. Krishna comes in this world to show like that. And, we see how he loved the gopis and how he was friends with Arjuna and how he was such a beautiful child to Mother Yashoda and Devaki and Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva. So in that way, we can also have a relationship with God on that deep level. And this chanting of Hare Krishna is what brings that out. So I wanted to talk about this, going back to the beginning, because we've kind of started off logical. Now we're talking about being friends with God and God being our lover, kind of high mystical stuff here. But going back to the sense of, we have some feeling of insecurity, all these things, all going back to that sin that doesn't allow us to see ourselves for who we are. Well, when you avoid the ignorance, when ignorance is gone, you still may have propensities, you still may make mistakes, you still may mess up, because you're a human being. Even though you're a spiritual being, you're in a human body, and that means there's going to be some frailties. But Krishna says, "Apichet siddharacharo bhajate mama nanyabak sadareva samantiha yaha samyak devashuto saha." That even if one is abominable, even if one finds themselves in some abominable situation, if they understand, if they have the consciousness to be bhajate mama nanyabak, if they have the consciousness to be an unalloyed devotee, a friend of me, that I'm Krishna's, I belong to Krishna. No matter whatever's going on in my life, I've acted so many ways. I'm not the things I've done. I'm not the things I've done in the past. I'm not this body. I'm not ugly or beautiful. I'm none of these things, but I am your part and parcel, and I love you. If we can develop that consciousness, and Krishna says, "Sadareva samantavyaha," then he'll consider you a saint. And by that consciousness, you become fully purified. And so it's not that we have to be perfect. Like Govinda Madhava was speaking yesterday last week of this grace. That the grace is not that it's we're measuring ourselves to, whatever level. But I'm actually a surrendered person. I'm surrendered to him and I'm his devotee. And that knowledge is perfection. That knowledge, that sense, that's a real sense. It's not just something we say, but that sense of being that person. That is spiritual perfection. And in that place, we become purified and we become able to overcome ignorance and ignorant activities. And, it's not performance-based spirituality. It's not performance-based. It's actually a real experience of purification and of love and of feeling that love. That actually there's nothing you can do that would make the supreme source of love stop loving you. But all the things we do that don't allow us to see that. If we were able to unmove the ignorance, we'd know that we are so loved. We're drowning in an ocean of love, actually. We can't fathom how loved we are. But that's why we have to chant Hare Krishna. We become purified. Our mind and heart become purified by that. And we can actually experience that love, that grace. And in that state of being surrendered, one can tolerate their own misgivings, but they realize actually I'm perfect. I have intrinsic value. I don't have to get my value from my job or from my beauty or from my hairstyle or from my beard or from whatever it is. My value is intrinsic. I have intrinsic value. I don't have to do anything to make myself worthy of all the bliss, all of the love, all of the happiness. And from that knowledge which is a result of practicing bhakti is the occupation of the soul. The occupation of the body is to die and to make money and do all these things. The occupation of the soul is to love God. And in loving God, loving everybody else. And when that is who I am, which is awakened by bhakti yoga, sadhana bhakti, especially chanting, hearing, remembering, performing worship, these types of activities, whether they're in the Christian world, the Jewish world, when they're done properly, to the personality of Godhead, who's unlimited and has unlimited names, when they're done properly, then that consciousness awakens and one becomes saintly. Saintliness does not mean that we're performance perfection. Saintliness means that we've been able to really hold on to and accept that transformative grace of the Lord. So, in summary, sin is that which doesn't allow us to see ourselves for who we really are. Who are we really? You're part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full of knowledge, eternity, bliss, love, and everything good you can imagine. when you begin to resurrect that consciousness by acting in bhakti yoga or acting in love for God, or what Prabhupada calls pure devotional service, then the ignorance is removed and one can see themselves for who they are. And although we may find ourselves in circumstances where we're forced to act in a way we might not want to act, because of that real knowledge, we can overcome and become and avoid the karmic reactions which are coming from that ignorant situation. Therefore, Krishna says, one who's situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, even if he is to be considered the most sinful of all sinners, can easily cross the ocean of nescience, the ocean of ignorance. Even if he's to be considered the most sinful of all sinners, if he's situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, which comes from devotional service or bhakti yoga, which uproots all of the ignorance, not just the sinful reactions, not just the karma, but the whole ignorance, which is causing this whole material situation that we're our existence in the repeated birth and death cycle. When we perform this devotional service, then that knowledge which we gain allows us to cross over the ocean of birth and death and come to the platform of spiritual perfection. So therefore, we're encouraging you, whatever level you're at, go deeper. You can always go deeper. And you can learn, chant Hare Krishna, and regulate your life in such a way. It's a whole science. You perform the science and the effect is the same. We've seen it time and time again. All of us here all experience this science, spiritual science. Thank you very much. We'll have some discussion now. Thank you all. Lon, Prabhu, you had something to say? Did you raise your hand first?
No.
Oh, Arjuna.
So much.
Thank you.
I used to be a fan of this show before I became a devotee, called Star Trek.
Me too. I'm still a fan of it, but okay.
There was this episode where one of the characters had to get on a boat in the afterlife called the Barge of the Dead.
Oh yeah.
And take it to Stonecourt, and that's what it always reminds me of.
I remember that. Yeah. But yeah, actually, we have to. We don't. The time of death. At the time of death, we'll have to take another body if we're still under the ignorance that I am a body.
We have to no matter what, right?
What?
Bruce said that we have to go and help Krishna with his pastimes.
That's different.
Yes.
But actually, generally, whatever we, like if you take a calculator and you add everything up, what your life adds up to, that's going to be your next birth. All of your activities, what did they add up to? What was the culmination of all your desires? Every activity you've done, what does it really mean? And if you take that culmination, that's going to be our next birth. And so we're saying that when the culmination of your life is Krishna, that I just want you, then yanti deva vrata devan pitrin yanti pitri vrata bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti mad yajino primam. That actually, if one lives a life yanti bhutani yanti deva vrata devan, if one lives a life worshiping the demigods, one worships Indra and Chandra and Shiva and Brahma and all these things, then they'll go to the demigods. If one lives a life worshiping the ancestors, pitri yanti pitri vrata, they're worshiping their family and the ancestors, and they're absorbed in that, the ancestor, right? People worship the ancestors, many spiritualities. And they'll go to the Pitri planet, Pitri Loka, the planet of the ancestors. Bhutani yanti bhuteja. If one worships ghosts and spirits, one will go to live amongst the ghosts and spirits. Yanti majyapi. If one worships me, they'll come to me. So the idea is that actually we want to go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and have a spiritual body. And at that stage, we don't longer have to take birth again. And all the other things, birth and death, are still implicit, because all the demigods, up to Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they all have to take birth and leave their bodies. And all of the ghosts and spirits, they're only ghosts and spirits for some time. They'll also take birth into this world again. And in the P3 planet, they also will take birth into this world again, whether they're on higher or lower dimensions. But those who are worshipers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, those who have a consciousness of that, those who are living a spiritual life, then why would they have to take a material body? They're spiritual. They're spiritualized people. All their activities are spiritual. And so in that state, one simply lets go of the gross and subtle body and takes a spiritual existence to engage in the most blissful activities. And so, I'll just make this point that sometimes people think of God as very impersonal, as an energy. And that's okay. God is also an energy. Vedanti tat vavidas tat vamyaj gyanamadvyam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. It's a lower level of understanding. It says that those Vedanti tat, those who have come to the conclusion of knowledge, tat Vedanti tat, they perceive the non-dual absolute truth in three ways: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman, they perceive the all-pervasive energy of God. They perceive the super soul in the heart of everybody, or they perceive the personality of Godhead outside of time and space. But when one has a personal relationship, it's a deeper, more profound sense. Because actually, the person is the source. It's explained, ahame vasam eva gre nanyad yat sarasat param. That the personality of Godhead is the source. From the Father emanates both the Holy Spirit and the Son. From the Bhagavan emanates both the Paramatma and the Brahman. And so from that source, that personality, everything's coming. But you can have a relationship with the energy or the localized aspect. But when you have a relationship with the source, it makes good things so much better. Because when a good thing happens to you and it's just from Brahman, then that's cool. A good thing happened to me. But when a good thing happens to you and it's actually, you understand this is an act of kindness from the Supreme Person, that it's actually like a lover giving you a present, that is so much more meaningful. In a similar way, when a bad thing happens, you understand that is that same Supreme Person doing something to purify you, giving you some trouble out of love, giving you trouble so that you can become closer to that Supreme Person, to Krishna. That's a much more profound and depth and meaningful state of existence than just tolerating it and being situated in the Brahman. That's cool too, if you want to do that. But that's not eternal, because everybody wants love, and we want supreme love. Supreme love comes from the Supreme Lover. But also, if one wants to be impersonal, they can be for as long as they like. But that's not the end of all knowledge. The Vedanta, the conclusion. A little bit of it.
I was just going to say that I always like the example of like the soldier that goes off to war and leaves behind like his favorite sweatshirt. And the wife is like touching that favorite sweatshirt. It's his energy that doesn't satisfy. She's still
I never heard that example. That's a nice example. Yeah, we can love the energy of the Lord. But loving the energy is not the same as loving the person. If you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, child, or father, daughter, or whatever, if you have someone who paints a painting, like Bala Gopinath painted this nice painting here. I love the painting. I look at it every day. I love it. I admire it. But if someone told me, would you rather look at that painting every day or have Bala Gopinath as your friend, I would say I'd rather have Bala Gopinath, let go of the painting, as my friend.
That's a very special painting, so it's little.
But I would choose Bala Gopinath. I think Lord Chaitanya would approve. So in the same way, we can love all the energy of Krishna, but when we love Krishna, that's complete detachment, because I'm not. That's actually the most mystical thing, is that when you love Krishna completely, then God Himself has to give Himself to you, because what can He give you? If you've come to the stage of all I want is you, I live for you. You're my lover. I'll do anything for you. You're my best friend. Then no amount of wealth or money or beautiful partners or cool experiences will satisfy that love. And so what can Krishna say? I can't give you anything, but I can give you my very self. And so at that point, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes yours, and you become His. And that's perfect love. That's perfect spiritual yoga. That's real communion. And that's why Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham madgudanantaratmanaha shadavam bhajate yamam same yuktatamamataha. Out of all yogis, he who abides within me and loves me within his heart with great reverence, great love, is the highest and most intimately united with me. Omar Prabhu had something?
I think you might have answered this before, but you talked about when Krishna acts like aloof versus when he acts like personally.
Well, Krishna is always aloof. I mean, that's always true. Krishna is always aloof. He doesn't need any love. He doesn't need any of us. Krishna is always fully satisfied. Swarat. God is fully satisfied. He doesn't need anything to be completely happy and joyful. But for the sake of increasing his joy, he does care about us. He does love us. But not that if we don't love him, it's going to like hurt him. Like if we love someone and they don't like us, then it's a big, big crappy situation. We all hate that feeling. Oh, it sucks. That's a terrible feeling. Man. But
what do you do if you?
1 second. Just going to finish what he was saying. Hold it there. Okay. So anyway, so then Krishna's aloofness is always there, but for the sake of Leela, Krishna may act. Krishna does care, but he's always aloof. And that applies. We can apply that to the devotees too. That the devotees, we have our friends, we have our our relationships, and maybe they have their families if they're not monks. But they're still aloof to the activities of the material world, meaning that they're still attached to Krishna and living in the spiritual dimension. And therefore, whatever happens in this world won't affect them so deeply. What happened, Parker?
So I was just wondering, I think you sort of answered it. But what I was going to say was, if you go to certain places where you seek camaraderie or like-minded people, but everywhere you go is you feel nonstop transgressions and opposition. What do you do?
Well,
how do you handle that frustration?
What does that mean? Transgressions against you, transgressions, you feel like you're transgressing, or you feel like people are transgressing against you?
Vice versa, to be honest.
I
feel like I transgress as a defense response.
So you feel like you're transgressing on others and making people upset?
Not necessarily. I feel as if wherever I go, I get transgressed, and I suppose I dish it back.
Well, we have to overcome false ego. This feeling of being if I feel someone's transgressed against me, then generally that's a sign that I think I'm this body, because that means usually that I have some desire for respect. You give it to them first. I'll just take a little plate. But I have some desire for respect, right? I need you to respect me. And if that's what I'm doing, if I'm craving and needing that type of respect, then what is the respect for? The respect's not for myself. It's for my body and for my mind and for who I think I am. He doesn't take. I think you're good for booze. But that's respect for who I think I am, not for who I really am. And so it's better we give it up. Better we try to be humble. Lord Chaitanya says, Trinata Pisanichena Tarev Ishnina Manina Madanina Kirtaniya Siddhahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street, becoming more tolerant than a tree. That's the real way to do kirtan, actually. This is coming from the Kirtanesvara, himself, the Lord of Kirtan, Lord Chaitanya, who brought the kirtan into this world. He said the real proper way to do kirtan is to be humble, like a tree, humble like a blade of grass, and tolerant like a tree, and offer all respects to others, but expect no respect for oneself. And so, that's how we overcome. We stop thinking that I deserve respect, or insecurity means we feel that we could be affected by what other people think of us or what other people do. But that just why do we let them affect us? Better we just be fixed in who we are. I'm a spirit soul, and I'm not perfect, and I'm going to try to be humble. I'm going to try to be good. I'm going to try to be spiritual. No, I'm not perfect, and so that.
Answers me. Thank you.
June?
Yeah. Mostly, I don't know if this is really obscure, but this guru I follow, his name is His Holiness Dasa. asked him this a little earlier question once, because I worked with and hung out with a lot of non-devotees. You know, and like, how do we treat them? They commit these offenses against, or like criticize, or like, oh, that's so weird, why you do this or that. And, you know, get angry or upset sometimes because I'm so particular with certain things, and he's turn the other cheek. Like, yeah, you didn't do anything to like bring that on or have that on, but I guarantee you, at some point there is something that you did to deserve that. So just take it like with humility and just.
Right, yeah, it's our karma. Yeah, karma, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You said some really profound things tonight. I appreciate that. I mean, some of the things that you said tonight, like if I would have heard that, if I would have heard this class when I was like starting my spiritual life in the church, and I would have been able to skip all that and probably been a little bit further along today. You have a way of just really getting to the essence. I appreciate that. Through all the flow, and really just bringing forth clarity in such a way that if someone's a sincere seeker, regardless of their walk, they can gain something from this class tonight. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And then I'll say that one particular thing that stood out was you said that being saintly is not performance based, but it's depending on this grace. And I really like that. I really appreciate that. That was amazing. And I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, perfections are. I mean, one of my favorite stories from Srimad Bhagavatam is that of Vritrasura from the 6th canto. You read the 6th canto, Omar?
No, not yet.
The 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there was a king, Chitraketu Maharaj, and he was a great devotee of the Lord. And of course, he had many wives, but by his karmic arrangement, every single one of his wives was barren. She couldn't have children. He was trying to have children with as many wives, and he couldn't have children. He was very sad. He wanted a son. Every king wants a son so that he can pass on his kingdom. And he was feeling very sad about this. And so Agastya Muni appeared. And he said, "Oh, my dear Muni Maharaj, please bless me that I can have a son." He said, "Well, maybe you should focus on spiritual life, No, I need a son. Okay, I bless you, you'll have a son who will be the cause of your greatest joy and your greatest lamentation. And so then they did a yagya, and then the wife ate the fruit from that yagya, the blessing, the sanctified food from that religious ceremony. And then they, had a baby together. And she became pregnant and became so joyful to have a son. It was a beautiful son, so loving. He used to play catch, do all the things the dad does, take him out and teach him how to do Kshatriya things. And naturally, he fell more in love with the wife whom gave him a son. And all the other wives became very envious. And they never got any love from their husband. And they saw that they all wanted children. They couldn't have children. And they were seeing that this, primary wife had a child, and that she was getting so much love from the child and the husband. And as their envy burned and burned and burned, they decided, well, we're going to kill the child. And so they poisoned the son. Why? Out of envy. Because they're hateful. Bad, envious. And so, then Chitraketu and the mother of the child wife walked in the room, and, the son was gone. It was a whole terrible scene. We don't got to get into that, but it's described nicely in the Bhagavatam. And so, then Narada Muni and Agastya Muni appear on the scene, and they say, stop lamenting. Death is, the soul is eternal, and why should one, need to face death? And he doesn't really get it. And so Narada Muni appears. Narada Muni is the most powerful sage in the universe, right? The most powerful sage in the universe. And so then Narada Muni appears, and he says, well, I bring him back to life. The son comes back to life. And, Father goes, my son. He goes, which father are you? I have so many fathers. I've had so many mothers. I've had so many families. Which one are you? I was not supposed to be here. I was with someone. I have another father I need to be with. And so he saw the son in his eternity outside of this illusion. He realized that this was actually an elusive relationship, that actually he's not my son. He was just, that was the characters we were playing in this world, but no, actually he's eternal and I'm eternal, and our relationship is based in God and not based on my body. I'm being the father, him being the son. And so in that moment, he became a pure devotee of the Lord. He's so intelligent, and he became fully enlightened, and he dedicated his life to God, and he just left his kingdom and he went and became a saint, and he used to just fly around in the celestial airplanes, and they would do kirtan in airplanes, flying around through the cosmos. And as he was flying around in the cosmos one day, he was such a great devotee, he kind of considered himself like, a peer of Lord Shiva. That actually me and Lord Shiva, we're on equal terms because we're both that good devotees of the Lord. And so he saw Lord Shiva on the Shiva Loka, and he saw that Parvati was sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva while Lord Shiva was giving a Bhagavatam class. And it's kind of weird to have like your wife. If I had a girl sitting on my lap right now, it'd be kind of weird,
I agree.
And so Chitraketu giggled a little bit, like Lord Shiva was giving class with his wife on his lap. Lord Shiva was thinking like, he took it as like light, because Chitraketu knew that actually Lord Shiva is totally undisturbed and completely above all material feelings of attachment. He's so transcendental. And so he understood that. Later, Meg. He understood that. And but Parvati didn't. Parvati became very angry. And so she cursed Chitraketu. Chitraketu, you laugh at my husband. I curse you to become a demon in your next life. And so Chitraketu came down and he said, I'm so sorry, but I'll accept your curse. I don't, I accept whatever punishment. And Lord Shiva laughed. He said, you can't hurt Chitraketu. He's a pure devotee. You don't understand. He's telling his wife, he accepted the curse and he blessed you. And so then Chitraketu immediately, he became a demon. He actually took birth as this demon Vitrasura, who was summoned by this brother of Vishvarup to kill Indra, to fight Lord Indra in this, another time and space. And so then he came out, this monstrous demon, but he was still Chitraketu inside, but he was forced by all the modes of material nature to act like a demon. His body was forcing him to do things he didn't want to do. He was born in a rough situation. Circumstantially, he was like a monster. And so he was destined to kill Indra, to fight with Indra. And so he was destined to fight with Indra. And so then he fought with Indra, but actually, he was thinking, I'm doing all these things, I'm actually fighting the demigods. It's just kind of crazy, kind of crazy stuff. But he was still thinking, my dear Lord, he says one prayer. It's the most beautiful prayers in the Bhagavatam. In my mind, really, they're my favorite prayers in the Bhagavatam. It is, when will that time come when I will once again be able to be the servant of your servants? And by the mercy of those servants, see and always engage in your service. He's praying like that as he's fighting the demigods, which is a sinful thing to do, really. And Indra realizes, wait a minute, you're a pure devotee. I can't kill you. And he says, no, it's your duty to kill me, you fool. And so Vritrasura was killed by Indra's thunderbolt. But he attained perfection. How? Not because he was a demon, actually. He was acting like a demon. But in his heart, he was Bhajate Mamananyabhak. In his heart, he was simply waiting that moment where he will see Krishna. And he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to do good. He didn't want to do evil. He just wanted to love Krishna. And in that state, that was his spiritual perfection. So all grace was bestowed upon him. And of course, Vitrasura died, but if we're in that state and we don't die, then actually we'll become purified. Krishna says they quickly become righteous and attain lasting peace. So when you surrender to Krishna, Sarvadharman Prityaja Mamekam Sharanam Brajaham Tvam Sarvapapebhyo Moksha Shamimasicha, and surrendering to Krishna, abandon all varieties of religion, Krishna says. Abandon all religion and surrender unto me. I will deliver you from all bad karma. Do not fear. And that's the most common phrase in the Bible. Do not fear, do not fear, do not fear, do not be afraid. Therefore, what does that mean? It says, when you become a devotee, Krishna says, I will carry what you have. I will carry what you lack and preserve what you have. I will carry what you lack and I will preserve what you have. This is the real thing. So the perfection is not in being big time doers. I've built so many hospitals. I've done so many good things. That's not it. It's not perfection, because what are your good things amount to? Actually, in this world, they amount to nothing. It's a temporary world. Everybody's going to die. No matter how many good things or bad things you do, they're really minuscule. Even you building atom bombs and Adolf Hitler, still it's just minimal, because the soul's eternal. All the people are eternal, and all the good things, you save millions of people, still minimal. But when one is spiritually saving people or spiritually hurting people, that's very big. And so even just spiritually saving yourself, that, I find myself in this condition, but my dear Lord, I am yours. That's what it takes. And, it's not just saying that with empty words, I am yours, and then going back to doing my normal ignorance activities. It means, now I'm asking you to give me the power to actually act in a way that is going to allow me to see myself how you see me. So we have our program for that, right? We chant Hare Krishna to purify the mind and heart, and we eat a certain diet, vegetarian diet, and don't eat any meat. Meat causes that, and avoid intoxication. These types of things. When you live like that and you apply the process of spiritual, then actually you become intoxicated all the time. You become blissful all the time, and you become confident, really confident. That's real confidence. I'm part of Krishna. I'm not. I'm fearless. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakankshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param. Now, Brahma Bhuta means that someone who's a Brahma Bhuta, who's situated on the spiritual platform, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, his mind, Prasan, his Atma, his mind, his body, his heart, they become prasan, they become completely enlivened. They become completely joyful. Prasanatma. Nasochati Nakankshati, in that liberated state, he no longer desires and he no longer laments. Samasarveshu Bhuteshu, he sees all living entities as equal. He doesn't judge. Madbhaktim labhate param, and in that state he attains pure love for God. This is the result. And how do you attain that state? Krishna says, Mama, by sagunan samatityetan brahmabhuyaya kalpate bhakti yogena sevate mamai vamsho jiva loke, without any deviation, bhakti yoga sevate, by engaging in unflinching bhakti yoga, sagunan samatityetan, one rises above rajas, tamas, and sattva, above the modes of material nature, and madbhaktim labhate, and he comes to the level of Brahman. So it's a science. It's a science. If you apply the science, it works. It works every time, all the time, in all circumstances, if you apply the science in the proper way. It really does.
Are there demons that still worship Krishna or love him?
There are demons who worship Krishna. They're not demons, really, essentially, if they worship Krishna, but that word demon, Prabhupada uses it in a different way than the Christians use it. We use it in a very different way. But demon actually is a race of beings, in one sense, called the Daityas. They're called, Prabhupada translates that to demons. Daityas.
There are multiple species of demons?
There's Daityas, there's Rakshasas, which aren't even human. Rakshasas aren't humans, but Daityas are a type of human But Daityas, what?
Is the source more general?
Sura literally means theist, and Asura means atheist. So Asura is like a general term. It also Prabhupada sometimes translates to demon. But the Sanskrit, there's so many more words for things in Sanskrit. So there's Asuras, there's Daityas, there's Danavas, there's Rakshasas. Those are all species of, like we'd say, demoniac species. Or species that are essentially against spiritual principles and against the natural order. They engage in bad karma. So those who are born in families of Daityas, like Prahlad Maharaj is the greatest Daitya. He's born in the Daitya family. His father was Hiranyakashipu, who was the greatest demon who ever lived. And so those Daityas, even if one's born in a circumstance where they're forced to perform so-called demoniac activity, so we can't, like it's one of those things where you may find yourself in forced to do things you don't want to do. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And in that state, then you'll be purified and you'll attain lasting peace.
Sometimes we have to be, in our everyday life, we have to serve some of those people that have that energy.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing is I'm just silently chanting the mantra and sharing Krishna, just sharing that love. And I'm finding lately it's kind of
that's what
you notice over time your interactions, even sometimes, not always, but they're kind of quelling when they're around that energy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly the philosophy. You're applying it perfectly, because you may find yourself. I mean, Akura was one of the greatest devotees of Krishna. Akura was working for Kamsa. Kamsa was literally trying to kill Krishna and had every child in the entire Mathura kingdom killed to try to kill Krishna. And Akura was, a mega demon. He used to, he was killing children like anything. And so Kamsa, Akura was Kamsa's, secretary, Krishna. And so Akura's devotion was so great that Krishna eventually, Kamsa was killed by Krishna. And Akura ended up, surrendering. And Krishna came to his house and used to hang out and chill with them. Akura was that good. So Krishna says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, mam anusmara vidyacha, maya pratamana budhir, mam eva shashisham shayaha. Krishna says, just perform your prescribed duty. You have to live, work. Don't do something, don't, be a butcher or something, but you have to live. You have to live, so, but Krishna says every action's covered by some smoke. Every action's covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, you still perform your duty, but you do it in a way, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, perform your prescribed duty. You got to support your family, your whatever, you support yourself, while at the same time remembering me in the form of Krishna. With your mind and intelligence fixed upon me, sure you will attain me without fail. I promise you this. So that's the proper way. Remain transcendental. Because you're not the doer.
Moments like of struggle, I'm visualizing and I focus into the fragrance of the lotus and I focus on Krishna's feet.
That's it. And you understood the philosophy.
I'm just like, oh, okay, this is beautiful. Okay, all right. Just cancel out whatever's trying to come.
So you have like an underlying chant that carries with you as
just a Maha mantra.
Haribol. He's understood the philosophy perfectly. Seriously. I mean that is perfect. That is perfect. That is perfect understanding. Perfect understanding. And one quick announcement that our friend Advait, who here knows Advait? You know Advait. You know Advait. Advait is the boy. He came with last Prabhu who came last week. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So our friend Advait, we've known him for a long time. He was initiated by Radhanath Swami today, and his name is Advait Jivanadass. Advait Jivanadass.
That's wonderful.
So his original name with almost our 3 days name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, everybody on the online world. Deep Jago. So yeah. Anyway.